Hey YouTube, let's just make sure that we are live here. Yep, there it is. Hey, this is my first actual YouTube live. Amazing. As I put in the description, I had a short out earlier this week talking about a video that I was posting to the channel, and the editing was taking a little bit too long. So I decided, you know what, let's just do this live. I haven't done a live before. Let's challenge ourselves and go ahead and do that. So here we are. It is Friday, January 13th. And today I wanted to talk about the three biggest problems that you are going to be facing here in your for your B2B sales as it relates to what's going to destroy your sales here in 2023 if we don't do something to fix it. So let's jump right into the content and talk about this. From my perspective, this is something that I've seen time and time again as a procurement buyer for enterprise, mostly in the non-IT space, but it could apply within the IT space as well. The challenge is this, that we treat every deal the same, and we have our processes set up, we have our methodologies laid out, but we really don't do what we need to do to advance the sale in a way that makes it desirable to close, let's say. That the way in which you get to the end state is calculated in a manner that it's co-created in a sense between yourself, your organization, and your potential client, that it has mutual benefits for both parties and a fit that aligns with both parties, so that by the time you end up at the end, it feels right that the deal comes together. And if you haven't done the steps to get you there, that's where you run into issues. So I broke it down into three different areas, and they're not going to be a screen share here today or anything. I'm just going to talk straight to you. Maybe in the future we'll incorporate a little bit of the fancy stuff. But if you wanted to see it fancy, written out fancy, you can check it out on my LinkedIn page. But here we go. Let's talk about it. So the first big problem that we face is what I refer to as disastrous discovery. Discovery is such an important step in the sales process, but it's not about how do you do it from a do you do cold calling or cold emailing or cold social media outreach, whatnot. It really is the strategy behind the discovery and treating the conversation that you have with that prospective client in a manner where they are engaged enough that they want to advance further with you. And what I mean by this is, how are we treating that discovery conversation? Is it really just a show up and tell them all about us, or are we really having constructive dialogue with that prospective client about business problems that they are potentially facing? And so if we don't do discovery right, there are three outcomes that can happen, all quite negative. The first being that we've done enough that they may have sparked a little bit of interest, but likely not enough that wants them to do anything more. So it would be something along the lines of, send me your slides, send me a proposal, send me a summary of what you do, and that information gets shared with your buyer to the point where it ends up in some kind of a folder in their email or on a shared drive somewhere, never to be seen or heard from again. We've checked the box, we've met with this company, but I don't know if we're ever going to really do anything more with them, because it's just an information sharing session at that point, and it doesn't really go anywhere. The second challenge that could happen here is that you have sparked some interest, maybe, but it's not the right time. Not the right time for that buyer. So what do you usually hear? Give me a call next week, next month, next quarter, next year, next, here we are in November, call me in January, right? It's not specific enough. We'll try, we'll certainly ask for a concrete date, even if it is in that new year. Here we are in January, right? How many calls did we call back because somebody said call us in the new year? But if we don't have a specific date and the specific reason as to why we're calling back, are we further enhancing, we're having a further dialogue around the business problem that we solve and why we're calling to talk about that? Or are we having a dialogue where we're just repeating ourselves of the same offer that we've already made time and time again? They've got all that information, and now what do we do? So, having a date or a next step where it's just call me whenever is not really a great outcome, because it's generally going to lead to calls that are not picked up or missed or rescheduled and moved out and just never followed up upon, because again, we didn't provide enough value in that discovery conversation that all of a sudden now the buyer doesn't want to talk to us anymore. So that's bad outcome number 2. Bad outcome number 3 is, of course, again, that you didn't provide enough value. You haven't done enough to spark the interest. And so you'll end up leaving that discovery session with a thanks, but no thanks. We're not going to take this any further. We've already got a solution that does more than enough for us. We don't need to speak with you anymore. Does this happen occasionally? Yes. There's definitely going to be times that there isn't a fit. But if we haven't done the discovery properly, if we haven't invested some time and effort as it relates to wanting to uncover the business problem that they may or may not even be aware that they are facing, and what that potentially would be costing them in the future, whether it's a challenge with the revenue, challenge with profitability, challenge with high turnover of their employees, whatever that business problem that they are potentially facing. If we don't have that level of dialogue with them, the likelihood of them just saying thanks but no thanks is greatly increased, and it's not going to make your sales process go any further. So disastrous discovery is something that is quite important. It's a really important phase that we need to focus on and really structure in a manner that it drives the buyer to want to move on to the next step. Which takes us to problem number 2, and that is one where I refer to as the dull demo. Dull demos kill sales process, and that's because, again, we've treated demo like it's a off-the-shelf, meeting in a sense, right? Oh, we got the demo, here we go, so line it up, just pull out, slides 1 through 50. We've always got to show those ones, and oh, by the way, make sure we show them the latest and greatest tech here, and we're ready to go, right? We're going to just do the same old, and they're going to love it, and we're going to move the deal forward from there. And that doesn't work. It doesn't work because it's not enough for the customer to understand if this solution is going to solve their problem or not. And so it has to be more customized, has to be presented in a way with good storytelling as to why this makes sense for them to want to talk to us further. So if we find ourselves having these dull demo sessions, there's really one of 3 outcomes that could happen here. Number 1 is that it really is truly dull, boring, not engaging enough, and we're going to share what we have, and it's going to go nowhere. It's not going to lead to another meeting. It's not going to lead to another second demo. It's not going to lead to anything that's really of any substance. Maybe it's can you share some more information with me? But again, that usually just ends up in a junk drawer somewhere that is to be found never again. So we've finished that demo, and all of a sudden, that's it. That's the end of our process. Nothing more can happen from here. The other outcome that could happen is that it's like information overload. We've come into the demo in maybe not customized per se, but we've brought way too many people into the demo without really understanding who the audience are for the demo meeting specifically. There may be, and I wouldn't say there may be, there are going to be more than one decision maker or more than one person involved in the decision of your product or service, even if it's non-IT related services, that are going to be needing to have insight in terms of what these products or services will do to help the business. And if we aren't familiar with who is in the room and what their interests are and how it will impact them, having everybody on our team presenting and providing insight is great when it comes to demonstrating what it is that we're offering. However, the challenge becomes one of, are the right people in the room? And are we speaking about the right elements? So I've been in demonstration meetings with people who are very technical in nature. And when we're talking about the technical solution of a product or service, mainly service side, where it's integrating into the systems of our organization, and all of a sudden now we need to talk technicalities and how it works and what happens on the back end and whatnot. All of that, I'm not saying isn't important. It's super important, more than likely to the tech people who would be involved in helping to implement that. But if we're sitting around a room with people from finance, because we're talking about the commercial side of the business, or if we're talking to people who are going to use the service, but not necessarily be involved in the implementation of the service, they are looking at it with a different lens. And so the tech, component is important, but is it important for the moment and for the audience that is in front of us at that time? We have to really be specific on what we're presenting and how we're doing it and to who we are doing it with. So too many people is information overload, and now it's really not valuable enough for the team or however many people are involved who you're working through, that will, again, advance forward and move the deal into the next phase. The other third outcome is when we don't bring enough people in some cases, or again, not attracting to the right people, and we try to do it in a manner that we go very broad and not deep enough with how the solution works. Again, not bringing it back to the business problem that it solves for and how it truly would work within that customer's organization. Not really understanding them and bringing them into the level of saying, oh, I see how this could help us, or I see how this would work for our organization. When we share information in a manner that is just not going to work in the sense of having that customer understand how it will apply for them and them seeing that happen for them, it's just going to be too much for them to take in, too much work in a sense for them to envision it, and being too broad and not deep enough for getting to that root cause understanding of their business problem is not going to be enough for them to want to move that forward. So three big issues there that we want to make sure that if we're doing demonstrations that we've covered it to a point of knowing who's in the audience and what business problems it solves and how it impacts each of those people is going to be key to overcoming that problem. Which brings us to problem number 3. Problem number 3 is very important as well because it's the end of our sales process. And what I refer to this problem as is diluted deals. They're diluted because they are done in a way that it likely doesn't make sense for one or both parties to move forward. And this is where we are competing on price. We are giving up terms and conditions that aren't aligned with our business and our organization and how we're going to be able to protect our company. This is where we are, in essence, we haven't done our job from a sales perspective to showcase the value, and therefore the deal is diluted down to a level that it likely isn't advantageous for us to take it. If we do, we're checking the box because we want the logo on our website, or we're trying to, add a number to our sales quota, but is it really a good deal? One that is going to generate future business for us, either within that customer or as a referral, or is there really any long-term view of seeing this forward on a future basis? Are we seeing it happening on a longer term commitment, and are we seeing it as a deal that we can really build much of a partnership, or more, is it more of a transaction? Are we really just saying this is good for the next 2 months, 6 months, whatever, and then we're gone and we won't do business anymore, and they can cut us off at any time? So the deal is diluted down, to which case is it really of any value for us at all, or even value to the customer? when we do these deals, when we have these deals that are diluted, there's, again, 3 potential outcomes that can happen here. If we've somehow made it through a discovery and a demo that just, at the end they ask for more information, that information is shared, and it's usually shared in the wrong context. Okay, send me a price, send me a proposal, send me your terms and conditions, I'll run it through legal. And it all sounds really good, but without the right next step, without the follow-up of, yes, I can send you that, what happens when I do? What's the next step after you get this information? And without knowing what those clear next steps are, sending the information is just almost like sending it to the junk drawer again, because there are definitely times when asking for more information can lead to deals being closed, can lead to the sales process moving forward and getting to a positive state, closing out, everybody agreeing, signing on the dotted line, sending the purchase order, whatever the outcome may be. More times than not, though, it leads to something of a long, drawn-out process. And one in which, again, will continue to dilute the deal. Which leads us to problem or outcome number 2, which is more common than not. One of the things that hits hard, and one of the things that really is a thorn in my side, because I hate this term, but I refer to it as the SIPS, the sharpen your pencil syndrome. This is the worst thing that can happen, and it happens all the time. It's almost one of the only negotiating tactics that people can use on the buying side, next to good cop, bad cop, which is, I've looked at your price, I need you to sharpen your pencil. I need you to cut 20 more points. I need you to revise the numbers. I need you to rethink as to whether this makes sense or not. And the reason why we're seeing it this way is because we haven't put the right context together with our sales process to make the number make sense in terms of how the value is being delivered. So if I know that there is a $100,000 revenue challenge which is current for this month, but could be recurring, which over the course of a year, that's $1 million, $1.2 million in lost revenue opportunity because the product or solution that they have isn't generating that value, but yet implementing our solution can overcome that. You have the opportunity then to make up that $100,000 revenue shortfall on a monthly basis, which will get you to the $1 million or more, because we can drive efficiency, and we see other areas where this can happen. This $1 million revenue challenge for you this year can be solved with this $25,000 software solution, with this $25,000 services solution. The context delivered in that manner looks like a no-brainer at that point. I mean, they might still think that they want to try and do the SIPs, but you have an opportunity to push back and, say, like, do you want $1 million this year or not? Like, we're outlining the program here as to how this would work. And I don't think that offering it at this value for you is bad, unless you don't want to solve it, unless you don't want that $1 million in revenue to come back. It changes the conversation when you have a business case laid out where you're really addressing the business problem. You can quantify it, and you can put your price tag beside it and show that the value is so much greater by not doing it versus going forward with you, and therefore, why are we arguing over the pennies when we'd rather find the dollars, if you will, by helping with that solution. So avoiding the SIPs is really going to be on your bucket list when you get into your deal cycle, of putting the right context in place so that you can avoid having to have that kind of conversation with that buyer. The third outcome, and this is, again, one that happens more than likely than not, is when it comes to your deals, you losing out to your biggest competitor. And your biggest competitor, and they're there in every single deal, it's status quo. It's that the organization, the person, whoever you're working through, is not convinced that the value that you can generate and the manner in which you can generate it will feel safe for them to want to move it forward. And feeling safe is one of many challenges, but one that you have to take into consideration. Change is hard for everybody. And in sometimes there are reasons why we absolutely need to make the change. Current supplier is not delivering well. The current supplier is sunsetting their services. We have to get out of them, but they're actually going to let us continue on a little longer if we don't have to do it this year. We might be able to get away with it next year. Kick the ball down the road, if you will, where we don't have to address it right now. Because again, change is scary, change is hard. If we don't have the resources, if it doesn't feel right from a timing perspective, if we don't want to push back and challenge on a current supplier, incumbent that we like working with. There are times that we work with organizations and we have good working relationship, but they don't have the same depth of knowledge or ability to keep up with our business. And in which case, even though we like what they're doing, we might need to make a change, even if that means it's really hard for us to break this relationship. Because if they're not going to invest in the services or the software, whatever it is that they're dealing with us with, and we got to go find another solution, well, then that might be on the radar for us. But I still like working with them. I still enjoy them as individuals, and they still come through for us time and time again. So we have all of that to overcome when we present our case as to why this makes sense. When we present in a way that our business case makes more sense, that we're going to help them solve more business challenges, that the return is going to be greater because the investment's going to be way lower than what they get on their return. But it's still going to be hard. And we need to address that not at the closing phase, but throughout the entire process. What does it mean to you? When was the last time that you've made a change on this current solution compared to, considering what we might be addressing with you today? When was the last time? When I think back in my career, there was a time when I worked for an organization that had a creative agency for their marketing. They had an agency for a significant amount of time. And when I say significant, in marketing terms, it was like more than 50 years. And that's a long time. This is going back quite a bit. But when they first started working with an agency, imagine having a 50-plus year relationship with them. Imagine also what it would have taken at the time to say, we need to break away and do something different. If you're in a marketing agency and specifically in creative agency, they usually have a long runway in terms of the longevity of the relationship. It's not something that you can look at every 3 years, even though people tend to, especially in procurement, they like to think that you can bid this out every 3 years, but it probably takes a good 3 years of getting to know one another from the marketing campaign perspective and timing, to be able to work well, to get a sense of the different seasonalities of the type of business that you're working with, and let the creative come out. And then from like years 3 through 7 or 8, that's where the really great marketing comes out. That's where the great ideas are sparked, and you get one home run and another, and then things are starting to roll. And it's probably in around that somewhere 8-9 year time frame that things start to fall out, and then marketing people will start thinking, it might be time for a change here. So you don't see a lot of RFPs in that space all of the time. But it doesn't mean that they're not considering it. But when they do come up, it's still one of those areas where, hey, if we're thinking about doing this change, we've had now a long time of working together and breaking away and training somebody new and getting somebody new and up and running, knowing that we've got a 1 to 3 year ramp up, if you will, to get set and to be reestablishing that working relationship. That takes a lot for someone to really want to say, okay, then this makes sense for us to move forward with and deal with. So just an example there of how that could apply for you as it relates to when you're thinking about what it has taken to win new customers in the past. And when you have lost deals to status quo, did you challenge the buyer in a sense of getting an understanding of when the last time it was that they made a change, and what was the good, the bad, and the ugly of when that happened? What were some of the mistakes that were made that you would want to avoid if you were to consider making a change in the future? Those are conversations that you don't want to have when you've gone through the whole process and now you're at the stage of talking commercials, and you want to get a sense of, at that point, of what change potentially would mean. That's only just going to bring up the fear. We need to address it in the beginning. We need to get a sense of what this could potentially mean for somebody. Is if they were to find or resolve a business problem that has been a thorn for them and the business for quite some time. If they were to solve this, what does that mean to them? Could that lift them up in their career? Could it mean getting more people to support the team because now they can do more with the additional revenue that's coming in? What does it mean for the organization if they were to solve the problem, if they were to go through a little bit of change pain to make that happen? If you don't know that by the time you get to the end, then your deal is likely not going to go anywhere, because again, without addressing it and confronting it all the way through the process with everyone that you work through, from the discovery into the demo phase and now into the deal making phase, that if you don't address it, then that's where it will become more problematic for you to really overcome and try to beat out whatever status quo may be. And does it work 100% of the time? No, absolutely not. But you have to at least be willing to have that level of conversation. And you might find out that the change is too difficult, that they may never be ready to do it, or at least under the current leadership may not be ready to do it. In which case, are you going to want to waste your time with gathering up information and doing demos and trying to make something, pushing it in essence through, when your efforts could be better left with, when the time is right, when you feel like that this makes sense for you? Let's reconnect. Let's stay in touch. Let's keep sharing information back and forth together, but understand that this is not an active deal, for the reason that until you're ready to embrace and take on the change, there's no sense in trying to do anything. So those are really the three big areas there. Disastrous discovery, we need to make sure that this is really being effective, that we're spending the time really uncovering those business challenges, what the gap is in terms of where they want to be versus where they currently are today, and a real understanding of the value that you would deliver to overcome that business challenge. Is there a big enough gap or big enough value boost, if you will, of your investment being made, and then the outcome that they're going to see? Are you treating it in a way that they can see that and take that to the appropriate decision makers that are involved in the buying of this product or solution to want to move that forward in the deal cycle? The dull demos, absolutely. We've got to be more engaging. We got to use storytelling. We've got to be delivering it in a manner that the information isn't just being hit in the front of the face and being shown on the slides and getting people to break away from their phones for a few minutes, to really be in this is something that I can see using. This is something I can see really challenging status quo, but then also being incorporated into our business that makes our lives better, that makes it easier, that makes us more efficient, that helps us drive that revenue, that overcomes these problems that we've constantly seen over and over again, that we just have been thinking it hasn't been possible to make a difference in, but yet now I see how it can. And then diluted deals. This is again where we are giving information over without an outcome or without a next step that's very clear, or watering down our pricing, watering down our terms and conditions, giving away the penalties and other issues that ends up being in contracts that aren't advantageous to us, and likely make the deal not one that's we would feel is right. It checks the box perhaps from a getting another logo for the website or getting a testimonial, whatnot, but is it really going to be advantageous for both parties to want to make it move forward? And then finally, losing out to your biggest competitor, status quo, that will always be there in the back of the mind. But if you address it in the beginning of the process, in the middle of the process, and at the end of the process, carrying it all the way through as to, there is safety to do this. There is safety in working together. Then that is really how you can help overcome that. So I want you to be thinking about that in your deal cycle. What are we doing to make sure that discovery session is engaging, that the demo is enriching and lively and engaging, and that they see value and that they want more from you, and that now we can't wait to get to deal closing phase, and we're going to do it together collectively where we both feel safe, where we both feel that there's value for the investment being made. The investment is worthy of what's being asked for because it's going to drive a return that is 5 times, 10 times, 20 times, whatnot than what we're currently experiencing. And we're going to both be so happy together that this is the only thing that makes sense for us to do. So consider that for your 2023 sales. How can we make sure that those discovery phase, that the demo phase, and the deal making phase are all advantageous for both parties, but that we treat them in a way that we can avoid some of those negative outcomes that we currently experience, and make it so that our deals aren't as good as they could possibly be. All right, so that's the video. That's what I got. I went longer than what's on my LinkedIn video here, but hope that the premise is there for you. I hope you get what I was trying to convey. Hope all is well. Hope that you're enjoying your 2023 sales year so far. And I hope you go out and rock it for the rest of the year by taking some consideration of what these problem areas are and how you can overcome them by shifting your mindset a little bit and working through your deals in a more positive manner. So I'm going to end it there. Thanks for joining it on the live. If you joined live, if you put replay, put the comment replay down below and share some comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these 3 big problems. Is there one particular area that you're struggling with? Is it discovery? Is it demo? Is it deal making? Where do you find that your deals are falling through the cracks? In the biggest area from your 22 experience, let's say. Put some comments down below. Love to hear from you. Love to engage more on this conversation. And who knows, I'll come back and do another YouTube live in the future. But until then, make it a great rest of your day. Go out and make it the best sales year you can have in 2023. And I look forward to sharing more with you real soon.